Algebra 2, welcome to another exclusive video. Go get yourself a video on how to convert general to factored form with a cubic equation, which is part 2 of the long division video. So let's get it started, right? We want to convert this equation that you see right here into factored form. Now, I give you some information, and we can get that information to then be able to use long division. So first and foremost, I give you the root, right? What that means is that I give you where in the x-axis, I'm giving you where it intersects that point, right? So I'm giving you one factor, which means this is 3. So if I was to write this in factored form, well, the factor would be x minus 3, right? Because if we're moving to the right by 3, well, it should be x minus 3, which is great. So we know the factor is x minus 3. And because we know the factor is x minus 3, we can then now be able to use this and the normal equation and divide it to get exactly what we're trying to do is, right, x minus 3 times what? We'll put it here, right? These are your other two factors. There should be 3 of them, equals this equation over here. And this is where long division is going to come into play. So let's go ahead and get this set up. I'm going to go ahead, since we know what the factor is now, we're going to go ahead and set it up. I'm just going to scroll down so that we have an adequate amount of space to work with. So we're going to get x minus 3. And we're going to put the original equation, x to the third power, right, minus 12x plus 47x minus 60. All right. All right, and I'm going to put this little arrow here, and I'll show you why. Because I'm trying to figure out, so the first term that should come up here, right, we're trying to figure out, so we start off with this here, and I'll write it over here. X times what gives me x to the third power, right, which is from this right here. And so the question is, x times what gives me x to the third power? Well, we know for a fact that has to be, without a doubt, x squared, right? X times x to the second power gives me x to the third. So with that being said, I can write it up. Oops, I forgot a square here. I apologize. All right, let me just make sure to get that in purple. So make sure to fix that on your paper. Okay, so now we're going to get, so x times x to the third. All right, sorry. X times x squared gives me x to the third. So that's what's going to go right here on the top. Okay, and now we multiply across. All right, well, what is x times x squared? Well, we know that's going to be x to the third. And now what's negative 3 times x squared? Well, that's going to be minus 3x squared. All right, so now what we do is, well, if this is positive, we flip the sign, that's negative. And since this is negative, that's going to turn into a positive. All right, and now we just add the rows across. So when we go to add the rows across, right, well, this minus that gives me 0. Negative 12x squared plus 3x squared, well, that's going to give me 9x squared. 9x squared. And now we just bring everything down. So plus 47x minus 60. Okay. Then I'll go ahead and do what I did over here. We're going to focus on this term right here. So x times what gives me 9x squared. Should be a negative. I apologize. There you go. Right, negative 12 plus the 3 here is going to give me negative 9, but we have an x squared attached to it, okay? So x times what gives me negative 9x squared? Well, that has to be negative 9x, right? Because the x times the x gives me the x squared, and the negative 9, well, that's just there, and so that gives me the negative 9. So that's what's going to go up here, minus 9x. Now that we have that there, we just multiply, just like we did before. What's x times negative 9x? So that's going to give me negative 9x squared. And then what's negative 3 times negative 9x? Well, that's going to give me plus 27x. And we put our little division sign down below. Now, just like before, remember, now we flip the sign. So this is negative, well, that becomes positive. And since this is positive, that's going to become negative. All right, and now we just add across on the rows. Well, what are we going to get? Well, negative 9x squared plus 9x squared is 0. And now we add this rows down here, and this is going to give me 20x minus 60. Alright, now I just proceeded to do the same thing. We're just going to focus on this term right here. And we're going to get x times what gives you 20x? Well, that has to be 20. So I'll put plus 20. And now we're multiply across. Well, what's x times 20? Well, that's going to give me 20x. And what's negative 3 times 20? That's going to give me minus 60. Just like before, we're going to flip the signs on them. All right, and that's going to be gone, and it's negative 60 plus 60. Well, that's just 0, so we get a remainder of 0. And at least for our class, we should always be getting a remainder of 0. Now, what this means is, finally, it's saying that x minus 3 multiplied by this right here is going to give me the equation we had originally. And so we can, right below, write it as, well, x minus 3 multiplied by x squared minus 9x plus 20. X squared minus 9x plus 20. Okay? Now that we have this here, well, we're not finished yet. We are not finished. That is for dang sure. We still need to turn this into its factored form, right? So right over here we have x minus 3. We should get two factors, x plus blank and x plus blank, right? We're trying to figure out what that is. So x plus blank and x plus blank. So first thing we do is write the factors of 20. Okay. Now remember that if we wanted to, we could use the quadratic formula on this, but it's always easier to try factoring first, right? So 1, 20, 2, 10, 3 is not going to work, 4, 5, and I think that's it, right? Well, can we add or subtract 1 and 20 in any way to get negative 9? Well, no, that's definitely not possible. Cross that off. Can we add or subtract 2 and 10 in any way to get negative 9? That's definitely not possible. Well, can we add 4 and 5 in any way to get negative 9? Well, I know 4 plus 5 is 9, but we need a negative 9. So what that means is both of these have to be negative. And so this is going to be minus 4, and this is going to be negative 5. Now I just converted, and that's my final factor form equation, right? So using long division, when I'm given one of the factors, I can divide that to this entire equation here and get that second factor. Is going to give it to me in a quadratic equation, and then we just go ahead and then do factoring to get these equation, this exact thing right here.